All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you are new. Thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you so much for waiting patiently, as always. Running a little bit behind today, thanks to boss. Um, he's chilling here with me. He couldn't decide if he wanted to join us on the stream today, but I guess he did ultimately make a decision. So thank you guys for being patient. But yeah, we have some interesting topics to go over and talk about today. One of the big things we're going to be discussing is the 3-year anniversary of the PlayStation 5. Today marks exactly 3 years since the PS5 officially launched. I thought we could talk about our experience so far in these 3 years. I'll give you guys kind of my update, right, on how it's been going. You know, how do we feel now on the 3rd year of the PS5 being out compared to how we felt when it first launched? Has it lived up to the expectation? Are there things that need improvement? We'll discuss that in depth. I'm looking forward to that. I actually totally forgot when I was thinking about it that, like, oh yeah, today is actually the day, right? This is the exact day that the PS5 launched. Forgot about that. I see a JC 2013. I'm not sure what's up here. I'll have to check that really quick. It looks like you dropped a milestone chat, but for some reason it's not actually showing up. I don't know why this continues to happen. It's actually pretty annoying. So JC, yeah, I'm sorry, man. I don't know why it's not showing up. If you could just type it again in the chat. But thank you for being a member for 10 months. Appreciate that, bud. You forgot to type it? Why does that? I don't know why that keeps happening. I don't know why that keeps happening. But, you know, I guess maybe sometimes it's that people want... I'm not saying you did this, JC, but I don't consider that sometimes maybe people just want to, you know, put their milestone chats in. It doesn't actually have to be a chat. They could just, you know, show off the fact that, hey, they've been a member for this long, but you're saying you're late, you're fired. Yeah, man, my bad. I'm usually not that late. I was like 3 or 4 minutes late this time, which is unusual, but again, appreciate you guys being patient. We're going to talk about some rumors regarding the 2024 lineup for PlayStation. Excuse me. You'll have to forgive me if my voice sounds a little weird today. I don't know if it's the change of the weather or whatever, but it's just been giving me some problems, so bear with me here. But we're talking about some rumors regarding the 2024 lineup for PlayStation. We have some interesting stuff coming out. We're hearing about Wolverine, possibly Ben's new IP, Death Stranding 2, Rise of the Ronin, so on and so forth. And we'll just have a general discussion about what it's looking like so far. We're also going to be talking about a new patent that was discovered that Sony is working on that will apparently allow you to replay a game from any point possible. Like at any point in the game, you'll be able to just, I don't know how that would work exactly. I guess we'll find out when we go over the patent, but that's apparently something Sony's working on, which would be interesting because that would be like I guess that would be the natural progression of things, right? Like we're going beyond clicking on checkpoints. We're going beyond save files. We're being able, yeah, I agree. That would be a dream for trophy hunters. Actually, I didn't even think about that. That would be amazing. So interesting stuff. We'll see what ends up happening with that, but we'll talk about it. We also have an update on the market share for the PlayStation 5 in the UK. We have a top. We'll see if we get to this topic or not. This is kind of an extra bonus topic if time allows for it, where there was a pretty interesting report about this year's Call of Duty and what happened during its development, but then Sledgehammer Games, the actual studio, came out and refuted this, which is interesting because this report regarding Call of Duty actually comes from Jason Schreier. So, you know, again, if time allows for that, we will go over that and discuss it. But yeah, before I dive into the first topic, which is talking about the PS5 3 years later, as always, just want to let you guys know a couple of ways you can help support my channel, help support my content, allow me to do what I do here. First and foremost, just being here watching the content, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching after the fact, Very much appreciate that. So big shout out to all of you guys for watching and tuning in. Taking a second out of your time, hitting that like button lets me know you enjoy the streams, helps with YouTube's algorithm. There are 3 ways you can support me directly. Number 1, become a channel member. You get some exclusive perks. Number 2, if you are already a channel member, even if you were gifted a channel membership, you also have the ability to gift channel memberships. It's something that a lot of community members here like to do. They're very generous, and it's very much appreciated because it helps support the channel directly. And last but not least, you can consider donating a super chat, ask a question, give an opinion, make a statement, everything in between. So yeah, anybody who chooses to support me directly in that way, thank you guys so much. If it wasn't for your direct support, I simply wouldn't be able to do what I do here. So yeah, very much appreciate it. But with that being said, we are going to dive into the first topic. And I see Devil Shooter saying, MBG, just a heads up, timestamps may be posted early tomorrow. That's fine, man. No stress, Devil Shooter. I just appreciate you doing the timestamps in general. I know I've been streaming more lately than I normally do, getting a little bit off schedule, and you've been keeping up amazingly well, which, again, I'm extremely grateful for, man. So thank you so much for that. No pressure at all, Devil Shooter. We very much appreciate what you do for the channel. All right, so the first topic I want to talk about is the PS5 3 years later, basically a 3-year review. How are we feeling about Sony's next generation console? Well, current gen at this point, 3 years into the generation. Shelly, you're saying, is this the most games you've ever bought in one generation? I think that's a sign of a great gen. That's actually a good question. I didn't even think about that. It might be. It might. I mean, there's really no way for me to properly quantify that unless I would have to go look back on my profile and count them up. But I will say it does seem like I am actually buying more games this generation than I was last generation, and certainly the generations prior to that, right? Like with the PS1, 2, and 3 and the Xbox 360, during those gens, and of course with Nintendo as well, it was less games just for the fact that didn't really have any money, right? I think most of us were in those situations for a long time where you kind of had to rely on your parents or special occasions like a birthday or Christmas or something like that to rely on getting 1 or 2 games at a time. And you have to kind of make those games last for a long period of time. I think that's a pretty normal thing that everybody goes through, but it really wasn't until I'd say towards the end of the 360 generation, the PS3 generation, going into the PS4 and Xbox One, that's when things started to kind of change, and I was able to, make many more game purchases. But yeah, it does seem like with the PS5 generation so far, I have been making more game purchases. But another thing as well, because it is an interesting question, another thing as well is I noticed that my play style has kind of changed over the years, where I noticed the way that I play games now, and I think Alan Wake 2, which is the game I'm playing right now, is a good example of this. I play very slowly. I don't know when this occurred. It may have been something that occurred this generation, maybe last generation. I can't really tell, but at some point along the way, I just decided to really slow down, specifically with single-player games, where it just... I don't know. I get more satisfaction out of playing single player games when I'm able to just kind of slowly and methodically make my way through them. And I think that my engagement with the internet, maybe I've always played games like this. Maybe it's my engagement with the internet that has actually highlighted that this is how I prefer to play games, because I'm often subjected to seeing, many people posting what they're doing in their games. Like, I platinumed this game like 3 days after it came out, or, just seeing people kind of post stuff in parts of games where they're further than me. And it just kind of creates this feeling of, oh, am I like taking too long? Am I left behind? So on and so forth. And then I just realized that, no, it's just everybody plays their games differently. And really the only thing that's changed throughout the years is now people are posting, how they play their games online. And yeah, so it just kind of made me realize that I've always played my games very slowly. It reminds me of Days Gone. Days Gone was a big game on the channel here where I was, I played it at launch. Obviously, I gave my impressions, but everybody was waiting on my review, and I didn't want to give the review of Days Gone until I platinumed it, completed it, put over like 100 hours into it. It took me like it took me like 2 months or something like that, 2.5 months. But it was because I was just playing it slowly, enjoying it, taking my time, and it was very satisfying. So, Arnie Vesper here with a super chat. He says, was hoping Call of Duty would get a 66 Metascore, only got a 53. Yeah, that would have been really funny, man. I actually didn't check the Metascore of Call of Duty. I'm not surprised to hear that it got a 53. It seems like when it comes to this year's Call of Duty, it's not that like I've realized it's not going to fail. It's Call of Duty's just too big for it to fail again, like just immediately. But I think that it's just the expectation of what was going to be delivered with a campaign and the zombies mode. I think the multiplayer is fine. I think most people are fine with the idea of getting all the MW2 maps remade, which I can understand that. And it's always about the multiplayer grind. I feel like that's why the majority of people are playing Call of Duty is for that multiplayer experience. But it just seems like anybody who did gravitate towards the campaign or the zombies just really, generally speaking, seemed like it left something to be desired. And I think that seeing the review scores and the Metacritic, it's indicative of that. And like I said, if we have time, we'll get to it and talk about this report regarding Call of Duty. But Arnie, I really do appreciate the super chat, bud. And yeah, that would have been a hell of a thing if it landed at 66 on a Metacritic. But yes, 3 years into the PlayStation 5 life cycle, how has it been so far? Well, I can't help but just reflect a little bit. The first thing that always comes to mind when I just think about the PS5 in general, and my time with it so far, my experience with it, I always think to the launch of the PS5. I think the launch of the PS5 was a really incredible time. It was easily the best experience I had with the console, and I think a lot of people feel similarly. Anybody who bought the PS5 at launch or who was lucky enough to get one, because it's just that's how it is, right? It's the start of a new console generation. You just spent a large sum of money to acquire this brand new cutting edge console, right? That's with new exclusives that are trying to impress you, honestly. And that's what I think is the first thing that always comes to mind for me when I reflect on the PS5 so far is the launch lineup of the PS5 was honestly phenomenal. I mean, Demon Souls for me is the big standout because I never did play Demon Souls, and I'll never forget, hooking up the PS5, setting it up, and making sure that the first game I'm going to experience on the PS5 is Demon Souls from Blue Point, because I was just super excited for it, and it did not disappoint, man. I was thoroughly impressed. I honestly couldn't believe like the graphical leap, playing it at 60 FPS, looking at the graphical fidelity and just being mesmerized by like, I know this is a PS3 game, but I just can't believe how good this looks. And then obviously we have Spider-Man Miles Morales. Miles Morales was a really awesome experience as well. And it was cross-gen, but it didn't really matter to me because it was just like, honestly, I felt overwhelmed at the launch of the PS5, to be frank. I felt overwhelmed knowing that, man, I got Demon Souls, I got Miles Morales, I got Astro's Playroom, I did buy Sackboy: A Big Adventure, and that I played much later on, and it was a lot at one time, man. And I think the reason why the launch of a new console is always special as well is because there really isn't any other time during a console's life cycle where you're going to have just a big push like that. You know what I mean? Just a bunch of games coming at one time and frankly overwhelming you. At the launch of a console, that's really the only time. It's very unique to that specific moment. And so, as you know, the first year of the PS5 was incredible. The launch was awesome. We went into 2021, and in 2021 we got Returnal, we got Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And, let me just give a big shout out to Returnal here. Okay. I think this is a game that is oftentimes forgotten. And I admit, even sometimes I forget about it. But, a lot of people have been critical about the way Sony has handled their game output in terms of sequels and whatnot. But I got to give a big shout out to Returnal, right? A new AAA IP. I know some people might not feel like it's AAA. To me, it's obvious. It's very much a AAA game. Brand new IP, and one that still stands out to me. I know that it's, it's just one of these things where I unfortunately do think that people have completely forgotten about Returnal. I do, because people often say, like, man, Sony has to diversify. They have to bring out new games, different types of games. And, people always make it sound like the only thing Sony puts out from their studios is just a cookie cutter, third person over the shoulder, open world game. But in reality, it's like, I mean, what about Returnal? Right? What about Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart? I mean, these were games that were available within the first year of this console being out, and they were very different in a lot of ways from, the so-called cookie cutter type of games that people would expect. And I just think it's, this is why I wanted to kind of reflect a little bit and just let it serve as a bit of a refresher and a reminder that we have gotten different types of experiences from Sony this generation. And even though the bigger ones, that people immediately think of, Horizon Forbidden West, right? God of War Ragnarok, now Spider-Man 2, it's understandable. But yeah, GT7 as well. And then you have their partners with games like Kena Bridge of Spirits, of course. But I just think, generally speaking, Sony has been doing a very good job this generation with the PS5. And, 2021, as I said, was a strong year. The only thing that I think made 2021 a weaker year than it should have been is Horizon Forbidden West was supposed to come out in 2021, but it ended up getting delayed into 2022. But then when we look at 2022, I think 2022 was an incredibly strong year for the PS5. Now, granted, I understand the big caveat here for 2022 specifically is cross-gen. Horizon Forbidden West, GT7, God of War Ragnarok, all three of these games launched. They launched that year, and they were all cross-gen. You did not need a PS5 to play these games. You just needed a PS4. But still, I think there's something to be said for that output. These were incredible games, amazingly well-crafted, expertly crafted experiences. And even though it was cross-gen, I still think that if you played the PS5 versions of these games, you definitely got something there, right? So 2022, as far as I'm concerned, was probably the strongest year so far. No doubt about it in terms of first-party output. I mean, Sony was really firing on all cylinders. That's not even counting, again, their partner games. That's just from first-party. And yeah, we have games like Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, Death Stranding Director's Cut, the Uncharted Collection, The Last of Us Part 1. All of these games, I think, were nice as well. Good bonuses. I played almost all of them, right, and enjoyed them. So we have Jake Skew 27 with a $5 super chat. You're saying, in a video tour, Remedy, they hinted working on something on Control and two code names, Vanguard and Condor. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Remedy is, I think they confirmed they're working on a Control multiplayer game, as well as a full-blown big sequel to Control. And on top of that, Remedy's also working on a Max Payne 1 and 2 remake. It's actually, I think, going to be both games combined into one big game. So it'll be one big remake. That's going to be amazing. I cannot wait to see that. But yeah, dude, Remedy, I mean, you got to give Remedy a lot of credit. They always have a lot of irons in the fire. They remind me of From Software a little bit, where they just always have things in motion. They always have multiple projects they're working on. The question I have is if, I got this comment on my last stream, which I thought was bizarre, truthfully, where this person left a comment in regards to Remedy's Alan Wake 2, and they said, the fact that I believe Alan Wake 2 is a game that's as good as Sony's first party is a sign that Sony has to step it up. And I'll be honest with you, like I thought this was truly now the only reason this comment caught my attention was because it got a bunch of upvotes. And this was very bizarre to me because it's like, I don't think this person or the people who were agreeing with him understood what I was saying, unfortunately, where the point is what Remedy has done with Alan Wake 2 is so impressive and so high quality that it's reminiscent of something that a Sony first party would do in some instances, right? And it's just so weird to me how people will try to twist anything they can, you know, where it's like somehow me saying Alan Wake 2 is a good game means Sony's lacking. Like it's very strange to see like the mentality that people have and the way that they just try to twist everything you say and do, where it's like Alan Wake 2 is a very high quality narrative single player experience with some solid mechanics with I haven't completed it yet, but so far the story is very engaging. And yeah, it's just very strange to me, man. Like, don't get me wrong. I agree that I want to see Sony Studios improve. Of course, I always want to see improvement. But if anything, I'm just trying to give credit where it's due here, man, where, you know, Alan Wake 2, you could tell there's a lot of care that went into it. You can tell that Remedy definitely put their best foot forward, and it shows. So, yeah, since you mentioned Remedy, I just thought I'd mention that as well, because it's just like, people are very strange, man. You know, it really is truly strange to observe the things that people say on like how people perceive what you say, where it's like, that's what you got from what I said. Like, very strange, man. Very strange. And Jake Skew, I see you also gifted a membership as well. Starting off the day with a gifted membership. Jake, thank you so much, man. That is for the membership as well as the super chat. So let me add that to the counter here. Good stuff, man. Really appreciate that support, buddy. But yeah, we'll have to see what else Remedy ends up working on. I do think Sony should try to court them, you know, see if they can. I mean, we know that Sony cares very much about having strong partnerships, and Remedy is an independent studio. I think Sony should consider talking to them, seeing if there's something that they can work on. You're saying Remedy, CD Projekt Red are so overrated. Mediocrity rocks today. I don't know about that. I don't know if I agree with that at all. Like I'm playing Alan Wake 2, and I'm playing it slowly. I'm savoring it, and I'm not saying it's a perfect game, right? But I don't know. Like, I'll be honest with you, I just don't like when people say that. I don't know what you were expecting from a game like Alan Wake 2. Like, I just sit here and I try to think to myself, like, what could they do differently? I mean, like, dramatically differently to just completely change a person's mind like that, where it's like they go from overrated to now they're incredible. I don't know. That's if I knew the answer to that, I mean, maybe I'd be consulting studios, right, and telling them this is what you need to do. But I guess I'm just saying that I remember when Alan Wake 2 was first announced, the thing that really caught my attention about it was Sam Lake. He was talking about the game, and he's like, "We're going full blown survival horror." Like, that to me is what immediately made me gravitate towards Alan Wake 2, where I'm like, I'm a huge fan of survival horror games, and he's saying they're going all in with survival horror. And I was nervous when I went to go play Alan Wake 2 that maybe I was going to find out it was more action oriented and they actually kind of strayed away from the survival horror aspect. But no, I think I'm like 15 hours into the game or something like that, and it is full blown survival horror. And I'm just impressed. I am. Like, I'm just impressed in that, man, like, these are the same guys that made Control. You know, these are the same guys that made the Max Payne games, that made Quantum Break. I did play Quantum Break back in the day, which is a pretty good game. And I was just impressed, man. I'm like, man, they are really doing a great job here. You know, just kind of understanding the atmosphere, the tension building, how to craft a survival horror game that makes you feel not overpowered, but not too underpowered either. And I don't know, man. I think that they did a pretty good job. Hicksock says, "Are you kidding me, MBG? There is almost no gameplay and survival at all in Alan Wake 2." Again, man, I guess it just depends on what you consider gameplay, right? Like for me, one of the things that I notice I'm doing in Alan Wake 2 is I'm exploring the environments pretty thoroughly, and the survival part I will say the only thing about Alan Wake 2 so far, I know I'm getting like way off track here talking all about Alan Wake 2, but the one thing I will say is and maybe it's because I'm just playing on the regular difficulty, but they do seem to be giving me an abundance of supplies to ensure that I will be able to survive an encounter when I have one. For me, I've noticed anytime I've died in the game, it's because I actually forget that there's a dodge button, and and I keep just like thinking I can like tank hits, but I can't. But I don't know, man. It to me, the pacing is like, all right. So my question is, Hicksock, like, did you enjoy Resident Evil 2 remake? Because if you did, like, these games are, again, like, it's very similar, where you have weight to your character. You're just walking around pretending to solve the case on a board. I mean, listen, man, if you don't like it, then you don't like it. I'm not going to sit here and you're saying, yes, Resident Evil 2 remake is amazing. Well, I mean, surely you can see the similarities, right? To an extent. I'm not like, they're not exactly the same, but there are many similarities. And that's where it's just like, I don't know. I guess I just find it weird that, like, if you're somebody who loved Resident Evil 2 remake, I don't understand. I just find it weird that you would walk away from Alan Wake 2 being like, man, I didn't like that at all. Like, not even a little bit. That's all. That's all. You're saying Resident Evil 2 remake beats Alan Wake 2 to death, not a competition. Well, I agree. I don't think there's a competition there. I think, Resident Evil 2 remake, I will say, is the high watermark. Absolutely. Resident Evil 2 remake is a phenomenal game. But I think it just speaks to the greatness that is Resident Evil 2 in general. So yeah, I don't think a game like Alan Wake 2, I'm not necessarily expecting that to surpass it, but I'm just saying they share a lot of similarities in the pacing and the feeling of just not really being sure of what's around the next corner. So I don't know. It's very strange. It's very, very strange. I noticed a lot of strange things happening with the conversation around games lately, where I don't know, maybe it's just isolated to my channel, but it just seems like there's a lot of animosity towards Alan Wake 2, towards Spider-Man 2. And again, I'm not saying they're perfect games, but it's just like, I don't know, it's a little strange to me. All right. I'm sorry I got way off track there, though. I guess this does count as talking about 3 years into the PS5, because I'm talking about the game that I've been playing lately. But I want to just finish off this discussion by also acknowledging 2023 as a whole for PS5. This year for PS5, to me, it's it's a strong year and a weak year at the same time, which is an interesting thing. I think from Sony's first party, this is the weakest year thus far, no doubt about it. 2023 is the weakest year for Sony's first party. When you compare it to 2020, 2021, and 2022, yeah, this year just simply doesn't compare output-wise. However, the reason why I say it's still a good year is because a lot of people buy their consoles like a PS5 to play third-party games on. I'm one of those people. I play my third-party games. I play those third-party games on my PS5, and I will say, like, this year has been an unbelievably strong year for just third-party game releases. I mean, obviously, we have partner games like Final Fantasy 16 as an exclusive, which is my personal game of the year so far. And, PSVR 2, Forspoken, the Horizon DLC, Horizon Call of the Mountain. So I don't want to say that like there wasn't anything, because it's not fair to say that there were these things, but none of these things I think had the same type of impact that people were either expecting or that we have, seen in previous years. But Spider-Man 2, I think, was a strong ending for Sony's first party. I mean, I know that Spider-Man 2 is like pretty divisive, but generally speaking, it seems like it did what it was supposed to do. It sold well. Insomniac somehow, I don't know, man. Insomniac, they just keep pumping out these games on a regular basis. MBG, are you really calling the PS5 a third-party box now? It is. It is. I mean, I'm not saying. I mean, that's not all it is, right? It's a machine you buy for exclusives, but it's also a machine you buy for third-party games. I don't know what else you would buy it for. You know what I mean? But I do think that 2023 has been a weaker year so far, and there needs to be some improvement. No doubt about it. There needs to be some improvement from PlayStation going into 2024. And I just think that right now, again, not to dive too deep into the second topic here, but there is just a lack of knowing what else is coming that I think it's making them a little bit anxious, where it's like, well, we want to know, not just third-party games, of course, but we want to know what else. That clip will be the Twitter drama for the week. MVG says that PS5 is a third-party box. Yeah, well, so is Xbox, I don't know, like that. What's weird to me is when people treat the consoles like the PlayStation and the Xbox like they're not third-party boxes. Like literally third-party games are the most played games on these boxes, on Xbox, on PlayStation. So if you're somebody who says if somebody says I bought a PS5 or an Xbox Series X to play third-party games on, yeah, of course, why wouldn't you? Right? You have all these third-party games available. They're relatively affordable consoles. They're plug and play. I think, this is where I think people get very weird in what again, I don't quite understand what's going on the internet right now, where it's like people are just, I guess, pretending that things aren't what they are, right? Where it's like Fortnite, for example, recently just had their OG event or something like that, where I think they brought back the original map. And it broke a record on PlayStation and Xbox, where like I don't remember exactly what the percentages were, but a massive amount of players on both of those consoles were playing that game on that day. And it's like, well, there you go. It's a third-party box. Like I'm sure Sony and Microsoft would kill to have that kind of engagement with one of their own games. And I don't know. Well, Microsoft does own Minecraft, so I'm sure that they get really good engagement there. Of course, they're going to have that with Call of Duty now. So that's, I guess if anything, Sony's really wondering, like, man, how do we get that type of, engagement that some of these third-party games are getting? But yeah, I mean, hopefully people don't hyperfixate on that too much, because I think they're going to miss the point completely. But yeah, 2023, man. Definitely the weakest year for the PS5 so far. Not a horrible year, though, in general, because it has been very strong with just having a lot of different games to play. And again, Final Fantasy 16, still got to give a shout out to that game. I really didn't think that Final Fantasy 16 would be my game of the year, just because, again, I'm pretty new to the Final Fantasy franchise, but I fully expected Spider-Man 2 to end up being my game of the year. And the fact that it's not, I mean, I know that a lot of people are going to say it's because Spider-Man 2 wasn't good enough. I mean, sure, maybe we could have that conversation, but for me, it really just speaks to how damn good Final Fantasy 16 is, where it's just like, that's the game that is at the forefront of my mind, man. It is. So, what a hell of an experience. Tijual, member for 4 months, says, looking to see at the Game Awards / play GTA 6. TMNT, Ronin, Rugrats Adventures in Gameland. What is that? Thank goodness you're here, Alone in the Dark, Little Devil Inside, etc. So I guess you're saying these are games you're hoping to see at... Dude, they're making a Rugrats game? That's so weird. And such a random thing to be inserted here, but all the games you just listed here, these are games you want to see at the Game Awards. I think there's a good chance we'll see at least some of them. Yeah, where is Little Devil Inside? That game completely disappeared. You're saying the Rugrat game sounds fire? I had no idea. This is the first I'm hearing of it. Alone in the Dark. You know what? We probably will see Alone in the Dark. I remember that game got delayed, I think, to January of next year. Either January or February. And I'm sure they're going to want to do a little marketing push for that game. TMNT. GTA 6, that's the big one, right? The next GTA game. Everybody's wondering if it's going to show up at the Game Awards or not. And it's anybody's guess, man. I have a difficult time believing Jeff Keighley. That would be quite impressive on his part. I mean, imagine Jeff Keighley being able to secure the world premiere of the first GTA 6 trailer. I mean, that would truly be a monumental moment for the Game Awards. That would be peak for the Game Awards, frankly. And I would have to question how exactly he managed to do that, because one of the things I have here is Grand Theft Auto, the announcement says trailer announcement is Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter's most liked gaming post to date. So it broke a record, guys. Like, Sam Hauser just simply saying we're going to show a trailer next month on Twitter. It broke a record. So it's like, it would be so impressive if Jeff Keighley managed to actually get that on his stage, because it's like, wow, it'll never get better than this. This is as good as it gets, Jeff. And good for you, man. But yeah, GTA 6 is the big one we got to figure out. How far am I in Alan Wake 2? I'm like 15 hours in, and I'm going back and forth. To be honest, I don't know. I want to say I'm more than halfway through. I think I've completed a total of like 6 or 7 missions or something, or chapters. I think that's what they call them. So I feel like I'm getting pretty close to the final act of the game. I'm curious to see where it all leads. Kazjam, a member for 6 months, says, am I the only one who's worried that 2024 might be the worst year in PlayStation history? There's nothing announced, and Sony seems to not care as much. No, Kazjam, I don't think you're the only one. Certainly not. I don't think you're the only one. I think that there are quite a few people right now who are pretty convinced that next year is going to be bad. However, I'm not one of those people, and it's because there's simply too much on the docket. Now, something else we have to separate here, Kazjam. You're saying in PlayStation history, maybe you can answer this in the chat for me. Are you speaking to like PlayStation Studios, like as in their first party studios, or PlayStation in general? Like this is just going to go down next year, that is, as one of the worst years for PlayStation? Because I feel like those are two separate things. And I feel like the way I'm reading your message here is, I'm assuming you mean for PlayStation in general. Like they're just not going to have many games at all to release in 2024. Because if that's what you mean, I think you're in for a surprise, man. I do. And I say that in a good way. I think you're in for a pretty good, nice surprise next year, because that's actually the next topic we're going to discuss. Is there seems to be some things leaking out about Sony's 2024 lineup. And like I said, there are too many things on the docket for Sony to have a bad year in terms of game output from their studios, and specifically from their partner studios. If you're somebody who doesn't care about partner games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or Helldivers 2 or Rise of the Ronin or Silent Hill 2 Remake, okay, then yeah, next year might not be good for you. But I do care about all of those games. And I think there are many other PlayStation fans who care a lot about those games. And yeah, Death Stranding 2. I mean, the list kind of goes on. So I think the real question to ask is this, Kazjam, is what does Sony's 2024 look like from first party? That's the question that we need an answer to. And that answer could go one of two ways. That answer could be it's looking weak. They don't really have much ready from first party, which would be unfortunate. But, it could be what happens. The other thing, or the other way it could go, is it turns out that they have one or two surprises up their sleeve that they're going to reveal and announce from first party, and everybody's going to be happy, right? It's going to be a crazy year for PlayStation 5 from first party and from partners. It could go either way. And so we're going to dive into that conversation momentarily. We have Cobb Sanity with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, buddy. You're saying, as a person who played other Final Fantasy games, FF16 is a good game, but it's not my game of the year. I got Spider-Man 2 for game of the year. Okay. Well, I've seen multiple people at this point say that Spider-Man 2 is their game of the year. And I can see it. Again, regardless of the conversations that people are having around Spider-Man 2 right now, I put 35 hours into the game. I platinumed it. And yeah, there's a lot of quality there. There's a lot of things that Spider-Man 2 is doing very well, that it's doing right. And I can totally see why people who've been waiting for Spider-Man 2 or people who, just have been waiting for this game, I could totally see why it would be their game of the year. No doubt about it. Yeah, it was a fun game. I had fun playing it, truthfully. I enjoyed a lot of the boss battles. I enjoyed the direction the story went in, generally speaking. The side content for me in Spider-Man 2 is probably the weakest part and the thing that I think bogged it down for me ultimately. But the traversal, all of the added God, I don't know why I'm at a loss for words here. The added what's it called? Ability. I don't know what, dude. I don't know if I'm like sleep deprived or what, but all the added abilities for Peter, for Miles. I know that people didn't really like the MJ sections, but maybe I'm crazy, dude, but I enjoyed the MJ sections of the game. Like, I know people are like, yo, she's OP, but I'm like, yo, this is fun. Like, I don't know why. I don't know. I would even maybe say that was, they were some of the funnest missions because I'm like, yo, they actually made her like, I mean, sure, maybe in some people's eyes, they made her OP because she can just stun people and Peter and Miles have to beat the shit out of everybody for like 5 minutes. But it just, I don't know. I like that stealth gameplay. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't actually expecting that. I remember when the first MJ mission occurred, I really thought like, oh no, they did it again. But then I started to realize like, oh, hold on now. This is actually way different, the way they're handling this compared to the first game. But all right, Devil Shooter, appreciate you tuning in, man. But yeah, I guess what I'm just saying is like there were a lot of things added to Spider-Man 2, a lot of things changed in some ways that I really enjoyed. Again, it wasn't a perfect game for me, not enough to edge out Final Fantasy 16, but still a really good game, I thought. Praising those MJ shooting mechanics. MJ was more skilled than Solid Snake. You know what, dude? Listen, man, it's the stun gun. It's not MJ they made too powerful. They just gave her like a I don't know. They gave her an OP weapon where it's like this thing can just take anything out. I mean, you know what they should have done in Spider-Man 2? They should have just had MJ fight everybody. She should have just like walked in and be like, "Step aside, Peter. Step aside, Miles. I got the stun gun. We're gonna take everything out, okay? No need to beat the shit out of everything for 10 minutes straight." and you know you gotta love too. It's like giving her an RPG. I know, right? To me, that's the funniest thing about it though, is that like it may as well just be a real gun. You know what I mean? It may as well be, because it's like it's just taken everything out, and I guess they're all just passed out. I don't know. It looks like they're dead to me. Just give her an assault rifle next time. But yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. But overall, enjoyable. I didn't really. What's weird to me is I like when people bring stuff like that up, like, oh, MJ's missions weren't fun because she was like OP, and it like, I guess it takes them out of the game or anything. It's like, I get that, I can understand that, but I don't know. When I think about my experience with it, it's like I didn't really think much of it. Like, honestly, the only thing I thought, without looking at anybody else's opinions, was I was relieved. I was relieved that that the MJ missions were actually going to be fun and engaging, and not just, trying not to be seen. I did appreciate that, truthfully. But MJ will be Insomniac's main character going forward. I mean, yeah, dude, she keeps that taser gun. That's where it's headed. Spider-Man 3, Peter and MJ go to counseling. Oh, dude, that would be pretty funny. I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I don't know. I don't know if they'll do that in the third game. They could. I'd be on board for it. Let's go. You know what Spider-Man 3 should be? I got it. Spider-Man 3 should be just you living Peter Parker's life post Spider-Man. Like, just a normal life. That's it. That's what the game should be. Now that would really, I think, surprise everybody. All right, let me see. I'm getting way off track. We got Mario B. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. You're saying, I think folks need to remember that everyone has a different taste in games, so not every year is going to be your year with releases. Of course, Mario. And I do think that that's something, when we have these conversations, that is worth keeping in mind, that every year is different, dramatically different in terms of releases, and everybody has different tastes. Everybody has things that they gravitate towards. And yeah, I think that, unfortunately, a lot of times with conversations like this, for some reason, for some people, that just like goes out the window, I think they forget sometimes that it's like, listen, man, it's all just opinion, like, you don't have to agree with it. If you think a game's bad, a game's bad. If you think a game's good, a game's good. Like, at the end of the day, we're all just going to gravitate towards what we want to enjoy and play, right? So, appreciate you pointing that out, Mario. We also have King Sam, a member for 6 months, who says, hey, MBG, beat Baldur's Gate 3 a few days ago. I think it has a huge chance of winning Game of the Year at the Game Awards. Too many bangers this year to know for sure. Yeah, dude, I will say Baldur's Gate 3 is, I think, very likely to win Game of the Year this year, because I think it cleaned up at the Golden Joystick Awards, which happens before the Game of the Year awards. But yeah, it's 100% going to be a nominee in many categories, but certainly for Game of the Year. And I don't know, it'll be what I will say is, if Baldur's Gate, based off of the way people have talked about Baldur's Gate 3 and the reviews and everything, if it doesn't win Game of the Year, then I think there's going to be quite a few people who are going to feel like, wow, well, what did? Like, what? I mean, maybe if like Zelda, I think if like Zelda wins, maybe that would be a lot of Baldur's Gate 3 fans would be like, oh, okay, I get, okay, yeah, Zelda beat it out. But yeah, this is why, like, if a game like Spider-Man 2 is nominated for Game of the Year, like, I don't know how it's gonna, go up against Zelda, go up against Baldur's Gate 3, go up against, these big games that a lot of people are like saying, like, yeah, these games like should automatically win Game of the Year. Final Fantasy 16, I think might be nominated for Game of the Year. I'm sure there are other games. Some people are saying Alan Wake 2 might be nominated for Game of the Year, maybe possibly Resident Evil 4, even though it is a remake. But yeah, we'll see, man. It'll be interesting. Joshua, you're asking me my thoughts on Alan Wake 2. We did just talk about Alan Wake 2 for like 10 minutes. uh, you know, a little. You might have to go back into the stream. I did talk about it. We have Cobb Sanity again with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, buddy. You're saying the MG part was like The Last of Us, LOL. Yeah, dude. The Last of Us, man. Oh, you know what? Cobb Sanity, you just reminded me. There was like a big change that happened at Naughty Dog recently. I totally forgot to add this to the topic list. So Cobb Sanity, thank you for reminding me. Let me hold on. Bring it up here. Yeah, so yesterday Naughty Dog made this announcement. They said our head of technology, Christian Gerling, has decided to leave Naughty Dog after an amazing 17-year career at our studio. We're grateful for his many contributions to the studio, our games, and his teammates. We will miss Christian greatly and wish him the best of luck on where his path leads next. Travis McIntosh, I think is how you say his name, a 19-year veteran at Naughty Dog, will succeed Christian as head of technology. Hey, chill out, bro. Hold on. Yo, knock it off. About to knock a bunch of stuff over there. Sorry, but yeah, Cobb Sanity, you totally reminded me of this, and it seems like there's just a bunch of shifting and movement going on internally at Naughty Dog. I don't know if this is. I mean, it's difficult to determine like what is this a bad thing? Is it good? I don't know. Saying Naughty Dog is imploding. Well, see, that's the thing, man. Is I know that that's what a lot of people are going to jump to, where it's like, well, you know, another big name left Naughty Dog, and they're imploding. I look, man. As far as I'm concerned, a lot of people already walked away from Naughty Dog after The Last of Us Part 2, you know? So I can't sit here and act like this. If there was ever a thing to happen that I think made people be like, I'm done, I think it was The Last of Us Part 2, not this, you know? But this idea that they're imploding, not yet. No, it all comes down to what they do next. What they do next. Irfan says it's not a bad thing. A lot of people over there are getting promotions. Yeah, I did see that as well. It seems like there's just a kind of leadership change to an extent, in certain areas of their development. But I don't want to look. I'm not saying. I think it's obvious that some things went wrong inside of Naughty Dog. You know, I think that is obvious that they had some issues with the multiplayer, and you know, just something happened, something occurred behind the scenes where it just caused a shift in the studio. And I don't know if that necessarily is Naughty Dog's fault. It might not have been, where like they just did their job. They made a pretty good multiplayer game that possibly could have been a live service, and then it just wasn't up to a certain standard that Sony expected as a live service game, maybe. And then they were just like, well, we don't want this to ruin our reputation. And that, to me, that's the key thing to point out here, is that a lot of people, like I said, they might jump to the conclusion that, it's doom and gloom for Naughty Dog. And it could be. I mean, that's one of many options. But the thing is, they haven't released anything. So we can't judge. We can judge the fact that they haven't released anything and say, well, maybe they're running into some roadblocks. Yes. But we have to remember, at the end of the day, we judge these studios based on their work, right? On their releases, on what they put out there. We don't judge them based off of rumors. We don't judge them based off of, some people leaving and some people getting promotions. We have to judge them based off of their work. And so for me, that's where I'm going to leave it with Naughty Dog. I'm ready for Naughty Dog to go in any direction, but I just have to wait, like everybody else, for them to announce their new game, see what it is and judge it for myself at that time. But yeah, I'm not gonna like come to any major conclusion quite yet, just because of person leaving. But I will say it seems like it was significant. The only thing I will point out is it definitely was significant enough. It prompted it prompted Naughty Dog to actually like announce this, which was interesting to me because it's like, well, I feel like this isn't something you normally announce. So I don't know. I don't know if they're trying to get ahead of something. I'm not sure, but we'll find out. Eventually, we'll find out. So Cobb Sanity, thank you for that chat, buddy. We also have Faberdud, who's with a $10 super chat. So thank you for that, buddy. Saying, my problem with Spider-Man 2 was, in my opinion, the developers were more focused on hitting all the right notes for what makes a game successful today rather than making something truly special. Spider-Man 1 was special. Spider-Man 2 was fine. Interesting. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that because, the more I think about my time with Spider-Man 2 versus Spider-Man 1, I agree. I don't know what it is about Spider-Man 1. I don't know if it's the emotional beats it hit. Maybe it's the story. The story of Spider-Man 2 is good, but I will tell you that in terms of like the impact Spider-Man 1 had, I mean, it was much more significant in terms of story. The impact of Spider-Man 2 didn't feel quite as significant. And then when you combine that with what you're saying, where you're saying it felt like the game played it safe, where like it really didn't want to go out of its comfort zone for the sake of, making sure that it's like basically more of what people want, more of the same in a sense. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it type thing. I'm in agreement with you. Like I do think I enjoyed Spider-Man 1 better, but there's certainly some things in Spider-Man 2 that I would have I would have liked to see in Spider-Man 1. But I feel like you're right. I do. I think that Spider-Man 2, more so than probably Ragnarok, more so than Forbidden West, I think it seemed to have played things the most safe. And it wasn't necessarily a surprise to me, though, because it's like, well, I did expect this. Like this is exactly what I expected from Spider-Man 2. And I've always said that that's why Wolverine is the game I'm looking to when it comes to, again, I know it's not a new IP because it's Wolverine, it's a Marvel IP, but to me, it's going to feel like a brand new game where it's like, this is a completely fresh take on this character I love, on this character's story, and it's not going to be in New York. It's not going to be basically what I'm saying is Wolverine will feel like that game from Insomniac where it's not playing it safe. And it better not play it safe. I'll be honest. Like they shouldn't, when I say play it safe with Wolverine, I mean, of course they're going to have to abide by certain expectations and things regarding the character to stay true to him. But I just mean like, I think that this is a really good opportunity for them to just like, you can do anything, right? You can do anything with the combat. You can do anything with the abilities. You can do anything in terms of bringing some type of innovation to what people would expect in a Wolverine game. These are all things that I feel like maybe Insomniac felt like they were really limited in doing with Spider-Man 2 because they just had to make sure like we can't fuck this up. It's a sequel. It's got to review well. It's got to sell well. We're going to play it safe. My hope is that with Wolverine, because it's something new, it gives them that kind of breathing room to go a little crazy if possible. Maybe not crazy, but you know what I mean. Just spread your wings, be willing to experiment more so than you would with a game like Spider-Man 2. That's my hope. But I definitely am in agreement with you there, dude. I did enjoy Spider-Man 2 thoroughly, but it is I hate to say this, it just doesn't it isn't sticking out in my mind. And that's what I think, that to me is a telltale sign that not that it was a bad game, certainly far from it, but just like you said, it was fine. It was a good game. It was fine. It was maybe too much of what I like. I guess I never really thought of like what happens when you play a game where it is precisely to a T what you expected. And I mean nothing else, like just exactly what you expected. it does kind of make you think like, oh, well, I don't know. So it's interesting, man. It's interesting when you think about PlayStation Studios, how on one hand you have Naughty Dog doing the polar opposite, where they're not playing it safe enough with The Last of Us Part 2 to where it caused this giant rift, an explosion, right? And then on the other hand, you have like Insomniac with Spider-Man 2, where like a lot of people are feeling like, man, I think they played it way too safe. Sounds like to me maybe what some PlayStation Studios should be striving for at this point is trying to find a good middle ground. Play it safe, but not too safe. Or don't play it safe, but don't go too far out, right? So I appreciate the super chat, buddy. We have Hanzo Reza, member for 5 months, says, 1, love to you and the fam. Thank you for that. You too as well, buddy. You're saying number 2, love the community as well. We love you too, Hanzo. Thank you. Number 3, what bygone era game would you love to see return, remade / sequel, and why? And then 4, wildest TGA hopes. Some good questions there, Hanzo. And before I answer them, I want to give a big shout out to Big MP, as he likes to be called here on the channel. Big MP comes in and he drops 5 membership gifts for the community. Let's get some W's in the chat for Big MP. I really appreciate it, buddy. Thank you for dropping those gifts on the community.
Thank you.
That actually brings us up to 6 members on the day. So I'm going to add them to the counter. And yeah, dude, that's very kind of you. Very kind of you. So good stuff. You're saying MBG Ragnarok's ending wasn't that good? I thought it was. I liked it. I liked Ragnarok's ending. Truthfully. Heatwave says Returnal is a great PS5 game. I agree. But Hanzo, let me make sure I answer your questions, because I can tell I'm like going to start going all over the place soon. What bygone era game would you love to see make a return, a remade / sequel, and why? That's a really good question. Okay, so there is a specific game that I have in mind, and that is, well, yeah. I was gonna say SOCOM, but I'm like, I've said SOCOM so many times, I gotta say something else at this point. And I have mentioned this in the past as well, but Resident Evil Outbreak. I would love to see that make a return, because you say like a bygone era. I mean, Resident Evil Outbreak is definitely a product of its time, where it's like it would have to be changed somewhat significantly in order to work today, but it was basically just the concept of the survival horror gameplay of Resident Evil, but in a 4-player co-op environment where you couldn't voice chat. And I feel like Capcom has done a bunch of multiplayer stuff with Resident Evil recently, or has tried to, but yeah, I don't know. The Resident Evil Outbreak games were really good. They were kind of ahead of their time in some sense. And I would love to see that kind of make a return. And I feel like Capcom is, in the Resident Evil franchise, is willing to like remake everything, you know, and try to re-release everything. I would love to see them try to do something with the Outbreak series. But yeah, SOCOM obviously as well. But yeah. And then the 4th thing you say is wildest TGA hopes. My wildest TGA hope is a new Wolverine trailer. I think that's the wildest, because I just don't expect that at all. I do expect Sony to show up, but I would, that to me would be like I would love to see that, man. I would freak out. I think a lot of people would freak out. So I appreciate that, Hanzo. We also have King Sam. He says, Hi-Fi Rush, Jedi Survivor, Final Fantasy 16, Baldur's Gate 3, Armored Core 6, Spider-Man 2. These are my personal 6 Game of the Year nominees. Going to play Alan Wake 2 next month. What are your picks, MBG? It's a great question. I mean, immediately, right off the bat, my picks, obviously, I'm going to throw Final Fantasy 16 up there. I will throw Spider-Man 2 up there, because, like, to me, it's worth a nomination, but again, it's not my Game of the Year. I got to put Resident Evil 4 up there. I think a game that isn't going to be present for Game of the Year, but I think for some people it may have actually been their Game of the Year, is Hogwarts Legacy. I feel like I would probably throw that up there. There's Dead Space remake. Oh, man, that's 2 remakes for Game of the Year. I don't know how that looks. Oof, I don't know about that one. At the rate I'm going with Alan Wake 2, I think Alan Wake 2 might be a Game of the Year nominee for me. Jedi Survivor, I don't know why, man. I could not get into Jedi Survivor. I tried. I did. I just wasn't enjoying it that much this time around. Maybe I'll have to go back to it at some point. I think I'm just like out of Star Wars now, almost completely. I really think that. I think that may be why I just can't get into Star Wars anymore. Yeah, dude, I saw that. WB announced that the Wonder Woman game they're making is going to be live service. What the hell? What are they doing, man? What did they like? That sounds like a complete disaster, if you ask me. I'll have to go back and look at everything I played this year, though, to really hone in on what my 6 nominees would be. But I think that's generally where it would end up landing. Again, I really want to make sure I'm not trying to rush through Alan Wake 2, but I want to finish Alan Wake 2 to know where it stands. I don't think Alan Wake 2 is going to beat out Final Fantasy 16. I mean, it would have to take it would have to have a crazy third act, I guess, in order to, it would take a lot to uproot Final Fantasy 16 at this point. But yeah, King Sam, I think the 6 that you listed here are pretty good. Armored Core 6, I almost forgot that game came out. A lot of people really like that. But yeah, we'll find out tomorrow, King Sam and everybody else. Jeff Keighley's going to announce the 6 nominees, Game of the Year nominees for the Game Awards. Will I play Star Wars Outlaws? See, that's the thing is like Star Wars Outlaws looks really, really good, but man, I just like can't stand Star Wars anymore. I don't know why. Like it's I'm not even one of these people that feels jaded or anything. Like I don't know, man. Something just happened where like one day I just stopped caring like at all about Star Wars. The last Star Wars thing I engaged with in any meaningful way was the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. And that was pretty good. I mean, it was okay. Like I didn't love it or hate it. It was just like, okay, cool. I like Obi-Wan. But after that, I'm just like, okay, well, I think I'm just done. But that's the thing is it does look like a really good game. So I don't know that I would want the fact that it's set in the Star Wars universe to stop me from enjoying what looks to be a really good game, but I don't know. Time will tell, man. Time will tell. Shems, oh my God. The way I just read that, though. Oh. Strong. Okay. We have Josh Z. Appreciate the super chat, buddy. You're saying what you are describing is exactly what Naughty Dog wanted to avoid with The Last of Us Part 2. Apathy towards the story. Well, I think they achieved that. At least in my opinion, they did. I may not have enjoyed the story, but you're right. I'm certainly not indifferent to it. It was a hell of a direction to go in, certainly. And, looking back on it, I can understand why they chose to do that because it's like, I can only imagine what it must feel like when you create a story like The Last of Us 1 and it goes on to win all these awards. It's hailed as like one of the greatest video games ever created, one of the greatest stories in this medium. And it's like, you're going to make a sequel and it's like, okay, how do we match that? And I could kind of understand how going in this direction of like, what if we just make it so that no matter what, like we're just going to force people to either love it or hate it, so that way, no matter what, they'll have strong feelings towards it. Because in a sense, when you think about the ending of The Last of Us, it's like, that's kind of the position they put Joel in, where they kind of force the audience to decide, do you love or hate Joel for like this lie he's telling? And I guess they just decided, maybe we should kind of pull that thread again, just in a different way. So yeah, you're definitely right, Josh. That seems to me something that they clearly wanted to achieve with The Last of Us Part 2, and I think they definitely did. So Appreciate the chat. All right, let me go over these reports with you guys. I have a write-up from WCCF Tech. Marvel's Wolverine and Sony Ben's next game may launch in 2024 and 2025, respectively. Following the highly successful releases of Marvel's Spider-Man 2, labeled as the fastest-selling PlayStation first-party game ever, Insomniac is now busy working on Wolverine. Originally announced during September 2021's PlayStation Showcase, the project origins were explained with the following statement by Insomniac's Ryan Schneider, head of franchise strategy and studio relations. Back when we were working on Marvel's Spider-Man, there would be times where all of us, Insomniac, Sony Interactive Entertainment, and Marvel would brainstorm together about the future beyond Spider-Man. And even in those early discussions, Wolverine continually came up as the character that we'd be really stoked to work on together. Fast forward a couple of years, and we're suddenly standing in front of Sony Interactive Entertainment and Marvel, formally pitching a PS5 game starring Logan. At the time, Schneider said Marvel's Wolverine would be directed by Brian Horton, the creative director, and Cameron Christian, game director, who previously led development of Miles Morales. Not much else is known in an official capacity other than it'll be set in the same universe as the Spider-Man games, opening up to a potential crossover. Earlier this year, Jeff Grubb shared some rumors suggesting that Marvel's Wolverine will be a wide linear type of game, so similar to like God of War or God of War Ragnarok, featuring a mature rating and targeting a fall 2024 launch window. Indeed, according to the ArtStation profile of concept artist Hung Ni, I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, Marvel's Wolverine is in fact targeting 2024. Of course, release dates for video games are always fickle, and there's always a chance for delay, but Insomniac has accustomed its fans to an incredible pace for a AAA studio. Perhaps even more interesting is that this ArtStation profile mentions Sony Ben's next game with a 2025 release window. As you'll recall, Ben Studio had wanted to make a sequel to Days Gone, but unfortunately Sony did not give it the green light. Later we learned from former leads that the game didn't do well enough in terms of critical reception for Sony standards, despite selling quite well. Ben was put to work on the Last of Us multiplayer game for a while before being allowed to pursue another project. In June 2022, they said this would be a new IP featuring open world systems from Days Gone, in addition to having some type of multiplayer support. So, yeah, basically what we are looking at here is potentially a leak that seems to let us know that, number one, Wolverine is seemingly targeting a 2024 release. Now, again, this is just an ArtStation leak. This cannot be looked at as concrete information, but I have no doubt in my mind that Sony, look, I don't want them to rush. Straight up. Okay, I don't want Insomniac to release Wolverine next year if it's not ready to go. Obviously, I want them to take as much time as they need, but at the same time, they have been working on this game presumably since 2021, right? And you combine that with the fact that Insomniac is kind of insane with their production pipeline and their development timelines. I want to say that it is, I'm not going to say it's likely Wolverine's going to come out next year, but what I will say is I give it a 50-50 shot. I give it a solid 50-50 where, like, I don't want to underestimate Insomniac. They've proven that they're on like another level in terms of how rapidly they can produce these games and kind of keep that quality level very high. So I don't want to underestimate them, and I'll give them a 50-50 shot here. You know, I'm just as ready for them to let us know that, yeah, we're going to need more time for this game. It's not going to be coming out until 2025 or something like that, you know, maybe early 2025. And if that's what they need, then they should get that. But, you know, this ArtStation profile seems to be hinting that, yeah, they're striving for a 2024 release. And we did hear that from Jeff Grubb as well. So it'll be interesting. If it's true that they're targeting a 2024 release, we're definitely going to hear more from Wolverine or hear more about Wolverine in the coming months. No doubt about that. Even if it's through like leaks. So Sony Ben's game targeting 2025. Now that would be, yeah, that to me sounds about right. I'm definitely not expecting Sony Ben's new IP to come out next year. It hasn't even been announced yet, but I do expect a reveal next year. I absolutely expect Sony Bend to come out next year and just announce what this new IP is, give us a good idea of what to expect. Again, there's been this rumor that's been kind of long running now where Sony Bend's new game is going to be a stealth action game, kind of going back to their roots with, Siphon Filter, but it's basically going to be a combination in terms of gameplay and mechanics of MGS5, Hitman, and Splinter Cell. And to me, that sounds like it could be absolutely incredible. Now, that's a rumor. We have no confirmation if that is, in fact, what Bend Studio is working on. They could be working on something totally different than what I just described. But to me, it kind of lines up, right? Like, it makes sense that the studio who has this history of making stealth action games, right? They want to. I mean, if you think about it, that's kind of a gap. That would be a great gap for Sony Bend to fill as well, where it doesn't fit the mold, right? When you think about it, a lot of people have been, as I've said, saying that Sony needs to try to make these different types of AAA games, and it's like, well, it'll still be a AAA game. It'll probably still be photorealistic, and it'll share some similarities, of course, to some of Sony's first party games, but them striving for a action stealth type experience, I think would be huge. I think that would be a really big deal. And especially there was also this rumor that it was going to be like a co-op game the rumor also claimed that it was going to be set during the Cold War era, and it would feature co-op if you wanted to play the game cooperatively. I mean, to me, this sounds like, I don't know, man. Sounds amazing. I actually really hope that's exactly what they're working on. Yeah, I don't know why, there was that rumor going around for a little while there that they were working on a Men in Black game, and it's like, no, they're definitely not. They confirmed it themselves. Just so we're clear, Bend Studio confirmed it themselves. They actually put an entire post out where they said, we are working on a new AAA IP. So no, they're not working on Men in Black or anything like that, or an existing IP. Saying it sounds exactly like Rockstar's Agent game. Yeah, wasn't that supposed to be a PlayStation 3 exclusive? Maybe Sony was just like, hey, we'll do it ourselves. I'd love to see that, man. So, see, that's what gets me excited about next year, though, is these two games we're talking about right now. I feel like there's a really good chance we're going to hear about them and see them. And I look, I've said this as well. I've said, and I will continue to say, I don't think Sony needs to have a bunch of first-party games ready to release next year. They don't. They need some, yeah, but at least one big one. But they have so many partner studios, they can rely on them and give their teams time. But what Sony absolutely needs to do is talk about these games next year. I think the PlayStation fan base is totally fine giving these studios the time they need to make their games. Don't rush them. We'll take some other exclusives in the meantime, but we just really want to hear about them. We want to see them revealed. We want to get information. We want to know what these studios are working on. And I think, 2024, I think it's a guarantee we hear about Wolverine and we see Wolverine. And I think, I don't want to say it's a guarantee, but I think there's a really, really, really good chance we finally hear from Sony Bend again. Because again, the last thing we heard from Sony Bend, in terms of like them putting out a game, was, Days Gone. So it's been a long time. I think next year would absolutely be the right time for them to reveal it. But we also have another rumor here that comes from Shinobi602. I saw this was posted on the PS5 Reddit, and it says Shinobi confirms Rise of the Ronin and Death Stranding 2 are launching in 2024, along with quote, other stuff when speaking about single player games from Sony Interactive Entertainment. Games as a service titles are Helldivers 2 and Concord. So yeah, this was something that I saw was making the rounds where Shinobi 602, he's not a source we bring up too often, but he's proven to be a reliable source and somebody that people definitely trust, certainly. And there was this post where it says, I think Death Stranding 2 and Rise of the Ronin will be their big single-player games of 2024. Probably no big single-player releases from first-party studios. Shinobi says there's other stuff. Whether it makes it or not is another question, of course. So, look, there's this kind of conversation happening right now where it's like either Sony is not ready, like they're not going to have first party stuff ready for next year, or they actually do have some first party stuff ready, but they just haven't shown it yet and they haven't announced it. And I think what Shinobi says here, he says there's other stuff, but whether it makes it or not is the question, of course. That tells me that there are these projects, these games from Sony Studios that they have, they're kind of in that in between right now where it's like, we really would like to have these games ready to go by 2024, but they can't commit to it yet due to just the nature of game development. But Rise of the Ronin, Death Stranding 2. I mean, let's talk about this for a moment, okay? Let's talk about these games launching next year. February, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Helldivers. Now we're hearing apparently Rise of the Ronin is coming next year and Death Stranding 2. That's I don't know if Helldivers 2, I would count that as a big PS5 exclusive, but that's 4 PS5 exclusives. 3 of them are very big. FF7 Rebirth is fucking colossal. Death Stranding 2 is massive as far as I'm concerned. And Rise of the Ronin is really big as well. And dude, I just saw Silent Hill 2 Remake is up for pre-order on Amazon and there's still no release date. And I'm like, this game's got to be around the corner. So we're hearing that Concord, that would be so strange to me, man. If Concord was the only first-party release from Sony next year. Could you imagine that? Oh yeah, there's Stellar Blade as well. I mean, we need an update on that. Concord, huh? I really do want to see Concord. I wonder if it's actually going to be good or not. Yeah, Foam Stars, can't forget that either. But those are just the partner games. And so, like, I'm trying to map out the year. Let's say February, Helldivers 2 Final Fantasy. Let's say April or May. Let's just say May, Rise of the Ronin. Let's say September for Concord. Maybe, I don't know, do you think Concord could be like a summer release? Yeah, there's Lost Soul Aside as well. Man, I'm losing track of all these games. Maybe Concord. No, Concord's going to be coming out next year. Apparently this game's almost done. Could you see it getting a summer release? Maybe June or July or August? But then Death Stranding 2, if Death Stranding 2 does come out next year, I think that'll be a holiday release. Maybe I could see that maybe being September or November or just, I could see Death Stranding 2 coming out September, October, November, or December, one of those months. But the big question, I think, is if Wolverine's going to make it or not. Because I think it's safe to say that if Wolverine does make it into the 2024 launch window, it'll come late 2024, like November. Like October and November, similar to Spider-Man 2 and God of War Ragnarok. And so, I don't know, man, that would be a hell of a year. That would actually be a crazy year if all those games actually launched. Silent Hill 2, maybe. Oh yeah, I got to throw Silent Hill 2 in there as well. Yeah, that's wild. That's a pretty wild year. So I think if Sony can release these games in 2024. And if they can have a really good show, basically letting us know, and here are the other games that are going to be coming out in 2025 and 6 and beyond, I think they'll have it locked in, man. I do. I think that's really what Sony has to do next year in order for 2024 to be, because it kind of calls back to the question that somebody asked earlier in a chat where they asked, like, you know, like there's like this kind of fear, is 2024 going to be one of the worst years in PlayStation history? I don't think so. No, I don't think so at all. I think if anything, it has the potential to be a very strong year. Just unfortunately, we don't have the necessary confirmation of release dates and windows that we would need, but it seems like it's starting to kind of align and get there. I really want to see Death Stranding 2. I do. Yeah, the PS5 Pro as well. Ooh. I think Death Stranding 2 might be a launch title alongside the PS5 Pro. That would be a hell of a thing. That would be awesome. I'm out of all the games listed here, obviously Wolverine's at the top, but right below that I think has to be, I mean, I'm interested in Concord, but it's got to be Death Stranding 2. The thing that I still can't get over about Kojima talking about Death Stranding 2, and I really think he was alluding to just a very different game than what people might be expecting. I remember listening to an interview with Kojima, and this was like the only thing he revealed about the gameplay. And he said the gameplay of Death Stranding 2 is going to be similar to gameplay of his older games, of games that he made in the past. And I'm like, shit, dude, that kind of opens up a lot of possibilities. But one thing it seems to confirm to me is that this is not going to, I don't think Death Stranding is going to be about really delivering packages anymore. I don't. I think some people, I do think some people might be relieved to hear that, but I think he's going to just completely change the gameplay of Death Stranding, and it's going to be just a polar opposite of what Death Stranding 1 was. And that's why I'm so interested in seeing it, because I'll be honest with you, I think the biggest thing that held back Death Stranding from being considered like a really, really top tier game, like generally speaking, like getting like better review scores and just having more positive word of mouth, I really think it was the fact that he went with a very unorthodox type of gameplay design that I really liked it. I mean, I questioned it at first, but once you get into the game, you realize, wow, it sounds crazy, but playing a game where you're delivering packages like this gets extremely addicting. Like the gameplay, he knew what he was doing. He like when Kojima came up with this mechanic for Death Stranding, he knew exactly what he was doing. But I think I don't know. It was always going to be one of these things where I don't think everybody's going to be on board with that, man. And yeah, I think Death Stranding is going to be way more action based, and I think this could be a huge difference maker in how people view a game like Death Stranding 2 versus how they viewed a game like Death Stranding 1. Something I also want to mention about the first Death Stranding game is we also have to remember the type of pressure that Kojima was under making that game, where like he had what he needed, of course, but they made that game in like 3 years. And I don't know, I just imagine this time around, he's more established with his own studio. There's less of a rush. There's just less pressure where it's like now they can take their time, make this game. And maybe, I guess what I'm trying to say is I wouldn't be surprised if there were many different ideas that Kojima had for Death Stranding 1, but simply didn't have the time to really fully realize those ideas. And now that, again, he's more established, he's doing great. Kojima Productions is in a really, really solid spot. I can imagine that there's just a lot more time and leeway to experiment a little bit more. I mean, he did say that he had to completely rewrite Death Stranding 2, which is interesting to me. It makes me wonder, like, what he did with the first draft that made him just be like, you know what? I'm out. We're going to do something completely different. You're saying Death Stranding was perfect the way it was. I love that even sometimes it was stressful with the packages. Dude, you know what's so funny about Death Stranding is I don't think I've ever played a game. No, I never have played a game where such a simple, like it's asking me to do what feels like such a simple task where it's like, listen, you got to deliver this amount of packages from point A to point B, and that's it. And just the level of stress you can encounter along the way, just because of all these different things that pop up that can cause problems and damaging your cargo, you know, the BTs, the weather itself. I mean, it's just like it was crazy. It was honestly crazy. But I put over 110 hours in Death Stranding, and I platinumed that game, man. I love that game. So I can't, dude. This is why I'm just so curious to see what he does, man. I am, because I feel like, especially when you get to I'm not going to spoil anything, but when you beat Death Stranding, you could tell like it was meant to be a complete experience, but the door was left open enough to a degree where it's like it could really go in any direction. It really could go in any direction, and I mean any direction. So I guess what I'm trying to say here, guys, is I really, really hope we see Death Stranding 2 at the Game Awards. Even if that's the only PlayStation thing we see, I would love to see it. I would love to see it. All right. So there's one other topic I wanted to discuss with you guys today, and this is being reported by Insider Gaming. They say here a new Sony patent will let you replay a game from any point possible. In a new patent filed by Sony earlier this week, it was revealed that the tech titans are plans to bring about a feature allowing users to cherry pick exact moments from which they can replay a game. It's a feature that would empower users to track back through a campaign and select a specific moment in time to change a decision, re-experience something epic, or recount their steps without needing to replay entire chapters or the whole game. Titled Content Streaming with Gameplay Launch, the all-new patent shows the desired process through a series of handy sketches and diagrams. It's shown that gameplay sequences would be split up into sub-chapters complete with trigger points that players can select from, planting them in the heart of the specific scene they want to replay in a matter of seconds. This will be a huge win for content creators, for example. Do you want to make a video showcasing how to defeat a particular boss? Well, with this new feature, you can jump straight to that fight without needing to tailor a save around it or playing a game up to that point, which might be several hours at least. And obviously, I mean, it mentions content creators, but as we mentioned earlier, like this would be, I think, a game changer for trophy hunters. No doubt about that. It finishes off by saying, and I guess this is the article writer from Insider Gaming saying, I can't help but see technical limitations to it. However, is Sony saying that every user's session will be backed up somewhere or on some centralized server? If so, that's tens of millions of playthroughs from thousands of different games. I can't see that being a thing. Also, there are references in the patent publishing history that connect this particular filing with other patents, some of which go as far back as 2019. So this has been on Sony's to-do list for several years. And that's what makes it interesting. And something we do have to point out is that, as with all Sony patents, this could just be a thing that they're just putting out there and, nothing ever comes of it. But yeah, I don't know, man. There are so many different Sony patents that we've talked about over the years that only, I don't know, probably one in every like 10 or something, or 15 actually, anything ever happens with them. But this one to me actually does sound like something that they want to pursue, they want to make a reality, but maybe they're just not sure, like with the the technology side of things, if it's quite there yet. Because as it mentions, it's something they've been pursuing since 2019. But I don't know, man. I would be interested. Yeah, this could be something they're trying to work on for the PlayStation 6. I mean, right now, PlayStation 6 development is definitely underway, and one of the things that Sony is obviously going to focus on with the PlayStation 6 is next gen features. I mean, we looked at what they did with the PS5. They can't do that again. They can't focus on the SSD again. They can't focus on the speed again because, that we already did that. They can't focus on the DualSense features. I mean, they could focus on ray tracing, but I feel like they already did that. So I have no doubt that some of these patents we're seeing, stuff like this is going to be stuff to try to win people over with what we would consider next gen features, because it's already expected higher frame rates, higher resolutions, better ray tracing, faster load times, even faster than what we have now if possible. All this stuff is going to happen. But yeah, this very well could be something that they're trying to look into to get ready. But that's it, man. Those are the topics I have for you today. Do you guys see that the PlayStation Portal, seems people are already getting their hands on it? Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like I'll be getting mine, because as I suspected, I knew something was wrong when I pre-ordered it from Walmart. I was like, why is it telling me it was giving me a date. It was like 3 or 4 days after it launched, and I'm like, that's odd. Like, you're letting me pre-order it. Why are you telling me it's going to come late? And then I found out that it's because there were no more pre-orders. And I've been looking around. I'm like, is there anywhere for me to pre-order this now? And I tried to do it on PlayStation Direct, wouldn't go through. Yeah, my first mistake was pre-ordering from Walmart. That's what I get for being so finicky with it. But I'm assuming they're going to. Yeah, dude, I'm shocked. I didn't expect this. Like, if you had told me, hey man, like a week before launch, you're not going to be able to get one, I would have been like, no way. With the way people are talking about this thing, it's not going to sell, and it's like it's sold out everywhere. So I have no doubt that Sony is going to restock it. I have no doubt at some point they're going to restock it, because it's clearly selling better, at least in some regions. You're saying it's available in the UK? So I'll be patient. I'll wait for it. There's no rush. Yeah, it's definitely not going to be DOA. You're saying, bro, I didn't expect to like how they even packaged the thing. Yeah, I think it's just kind of winning people over a little bit, Like, I think more and more people are kind of sitting back and thinking, I feel like I do kind of like this thing. It might not be as useful as like a regular handheld, of course, or versatile, but I think people just kind of like the concept of it. Saying it looks good in person, it looked ugly in the promo. How is the latency? I don't know. But I have seen that people are getting their hands on it. First impressions are coming out. I haven't listened to any of them. Let me see here. You still use your Vita, but the Wi-Fi is slow. It's surprising to me how many people still use their Vitas. I mean, it's surprising just in the sense that, I mean, the Vita might not have sold as much, but man, the people who bought it really, really loved it. If you have a citywide Wi-Fi server, you can use it outside, I think. That's still the thing I'm trying to figure out. Like, I'm pretty sure you can use it outside just as long as you connect via Wi-Fi. As long as you have an internet connection, you can connect it to. Pretty sure you can use it anywhere. Let's see something. Where is it? Huh. Oh, you know what? I just remembered. There was that article I wanted to read to you guys, or that report. I told you it'd be like kind of a bonus topic. Give me 1 second to bring it up. So I have this article by WCCF Tech. It says the original story, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 is out today on all platforms, and you can check the launch patch notes. However, the game's early reception, specifically for the campaign portion that has been out since last week, has been especially bad. According to a new report published on Bloomberg, developer Sledgehammer Games was forced to make the game in half the time usually allotted to a new Call of Duty installment. Activision enforced 3-year cycles among its 3 main studios, Infinity Ward, Treyarch, and Sledgehammer, but Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 was reportedly made in less than a year and a half. As you may recall from earlier reports, there was talk of this year's game being a Modern Warfare 2 DLC. This is backed again by the new report, with Bloomberg adding that it was meant to be a smaller spin-off like experience codenamed Jupiter set in Mexico. However, in the summer of 2022, Activision executives told Sledgehammer Games they would be making a full-fledged direct sequel to last year's game with a story once again centered around Makarov as the main antagonist. The development staff was essentially forced to work nights and weekends to finish Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 on time. Adding to that stress is the fact that Sledgehammer was promised there wouldn't be a repeat of 2021's Call of Duty Vanguard, which was also crafted on a reduced development timeframe, and it did not go very well critically or commercially compared to the franchise average. Moreover, following Vanguard, Sledgehammer had originally pitched Advanced Warfare 2 to Activision. The project, codenamed Anvil, was reportedly ambitious with a full campaign, multiplayer, and zombies mode. However, it had to be set aside rather quickly to make way for this new MW chapter. Last but not least, Bloomberg gathered complaints from Sledgehammer employees regarding the mandatory oversight from Infinity Ward, which made development inefficient as it caused a back and forth and sometimes undesired changes enforced from above. Thankfully for the Foster City-based studio, such a I don't know what that is. Let me see here. It says Microsoft is known to be hands-off with its studios, and just yesterday, Xbox Studios head Matt Booty stressed the importance of letting the team's creativity run wild, as they should be doing the games they're passionate about rather than some project mandated by the higher-ups. Moreover, Blizzard president Mike Ybarra recently revealed he's also spent time dealing with Activision executives. He reckons decision-making will be faster underneath Microsoft. So it's worth noting there's an update to this. It says Sledgehammer Games released a statement from the studio head to comment on this story. And they said, long before we wrapped up our previous game, we heard loud and clear from fans about the desire to stay and play together for longer within the same series. And that's what we've delivered, the first true sequel in franchise history. Oh, geez. It is also why we added features like Carry Forward for the first time to honor the investment our players have made in the MW series. We're proud to be the team to lead the way on Modern Warfare 3. We have worked hard to deliver on this vision, which has been years in the making. Okay. Anything said on the contrary is simply not true. This is our game, and we cannot wait to play it online with you all. So obviously, a boilerplate PR statement was given to push back against this, which it makes sense. You know, it makes sense that they're gonna say no, this isn't true, but it's obviously true. And you know, it's kind of interesting because I think what this reveals is just how much trouble Activision may have actually been in before Microsoft purchased them. And I think it's probably a good thing at this point that Call of Duty's under Microsoft, because, dude, that's crazy. Like, I think that's crazy where it's like you have a team of obviously a talented AAA development team that says we want to do an Advanced Warfare 2. We have big ambitions. It's something our team is excited about and passionate about. And imagine like telling them, yeah, no, but we can't miss a yearly release. So we're going to force you to make a sequel to Call of Duty MW2 in a year and a half. So good luck. And I kind of feel bad for Sledgehammer, because Sledgehammer's they're getting kind of ripped to shreds right now because of the campaign. I saw the zombies mode for Call of Duty. Apparently, if you get disconnected, it actually brings up a picture and it says DMZ beta, because like that's just how rushed the development was, where they literally took the DMZ map that has existed, I think, for over a year now, over a year and a half or something like that. And they just put zombies in it. And they had to, you could tell like it was a shit show behind the scenes with the development of this game. And, I know that like there's this running thing right now where people are like, oh, we should blame Microsoft. Like in reality, Microsoft didn't make any of these decisions. I think this just goes to show that the wheels for the Call of Duty yearly release machine were starting to fall off. And I think that makes sense because it's just like you've been releasing a new Call of Duty every year for what, like 20 years? Like at some point, something's going to go wrong. And what I see with this year's Call of Duty release is it's a product of a publisher that was afraid of missing that yearly release window, where if they had let Activision or Sledgehammer do Advanced Warfare 2, it would have meant they're not going to have their game ready. None of their development teams would have a game ready to release this holiday. And Activision couldn't have that. And that's, to me, I do hope, I will say this, man. I know that we've talked all about Microsoft owning Activision Blizzard, but I really do hope this is the kind of shit that will stop underneath Microsoft because, that's just not the way to do it, So we'll see, man. I think that if Microsoft is true to their word, like what Matt Booty said at the end of this, where he said where it's all about letting them be creative. If they're true to their word, then that means we should see results, right? Like we should see better, higher quality Call of Duty games, certainly than what we got this year. And we'll see, man. I hope it improves. But I just wanted to read that report to you guys because it's like, I understand Sledgehammer is going to defend their work, and I don't blame them. I know that, Sledgehammer's not going to come out and say, yeah, that report's true. We suck. No, it's just, I think the wheels were starting to fall off with the yearly Call of Duty release cycle. And I think maybe Microsoft will get a little bit lucky here because the next game should be from Treyarch. Like I said, they have like 4 years of development time, which is the opposite of having only a year and a half. But we'll see what comes after that, man. I think it's not... See, that's what's really weird to me is, didn't Activision say that they have Call of Duties planned up to 2027? That's really weird to me when you had to basically force one of your 3 main studios to crank this out. But you have games planned in 2027 somehow. Maybe Activision was going to let them do Advanced Warfare 2, but basically after this. Like, we got to get this out the door, and then you can start working on Advanced Warfare 2. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what Microsoft ends up doing with them, but the biggest thing I want to see with Microsoft owning Call of Duty now is if they have any intention of stopping the yearly release cycle. Because that would be crazy. I get, like, if I had to give my gut feeling on it, I don't think they're going to stop the yearly release cycle, but after seeing something like this and the potential development problems, they could. I don't think that would be a bad thing. I really don't. If Microsoft says we're going to give each team like 2 to 3 years, and that means, there might be a year without Call of Duty, so be it. I know that means less money, but I don't know, man. The way this is happening right now, where it's clearly not about the quality. It's like, we just got to hit that November 10th release. We got to hit that holiday release. It's like, but our campaign's only like 3.5 hours. It's like, ship it. Like our zombies mode isn't even really a thing. We didn't even get to finish changing the freaking disconnect icons. Ship it, It's crazy. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure to read that as well as a kind of bonus topic. It will. That's the question. That's a question I have, is if this year's Call of Duty, because people are really kind of ragging on it. If it launched in the Game Pass, would people be like more lenient on it? What do you think? I think it would probably actually hurt Game Pass a little bit. Just a little bit. Not in terms of sale or not sales, subscribers. It would definitely gain subscribers, but I think it would make some people be like, oh, see, it's the Game Pass effect, maybe. But maybe it's just better it works out this way. Anyway, we'll see. I just want to see Treyarch's next game, man. More than anything. I want to see Treyarch's next Call of Duty because they've always been a really good development team, in my opinion. Although I wasn't really a big fan of Black Ops 3 and 4, but I'm just curious. 4 years? Let's see. MBG, Microsoft forced Redfall out against Arcane's own wishes. You really think they won't release COD every year, whether it's good or not? Yeah, that's true as well. I don't. The reason why I'm not so sure about Call of Duty is because, like, Call of Duty is very different than, like, Redfall, right? Like, you know what I think happened with looking back on it with Microsoft and Red? You know what I think happened? Straight up, dude, I think Phil had no idea. I think the leadership at Xbox had no idea that Redfall was a fucking disaster. I mean that. I always, like, I questioned so much, like, why would you release this game? And you heard that interview with Phil where Phil was just like, we fucked up. You know? And the more I think about it, I'm like, dude, maybe they were so focused on Starfield and everything else happening and the Activision shit that they just had, like, they were just like, oh, you guys are working on Redfall? Great. Yeah, you keep doing that. We'll drop it in May. And meanwhile, the developers are like, oh my God, like, do we tell them? Like, do we tell them? I don't know. I guess I'm just saying, like, it is believable to me that there's so much shit happening at Microsoft right now with, like, Activision and, you know, managing Bethesda. Like, they just have so many moving parts. It is actually fathomable to me that they would just not know, like, oh man, wait, that game's it's a dumpster fire? Like, how did we not know? But, it's water under the bridge at this point. What are you going to do? But, guys, I will say that is all I have for the topics today. Definitely a pretty uneventful Sunday stream, but unfortunately, it's just the way sometimes it goes this time of the year. There's not a whole lot going on. I think the conversation will probably kick off tomorrow and get a lot more interesting because we're going to get the Game of the Year nominees. And so that's going to be certainly interesting and, getting us closer to the Game of the Year awards. But again, as I told you guys, I don't want to just artificially extend the streams just for the sake of it. These are the topics that I had to discuss with you today. I've pretty much said everything that I wanted to say. I hate this feeling though, because sometimes it always feels like I'm forgetting something, but I'm double checking here. No. Nope. Okay. Yeah, that's going to be it, guys. So talk to us about my experience with Alan Wake 2. I did earlier. AJ, I don't know if you're a little bit late. I talked about it earlier. I just don't want to go too deep into the discussion. I went pretty deep into the discussion earlier, but I don't want to keep going with it because I want to make sure I complete it. You know what I mean? To get the whole picture and to get the whole experience. But to keep it brief, I'm enjoying it. Did I see the series about the news about the Series S? No, I did not. You might have to. Is there something I missed? Is it important? No more rant juice, MBG? No, not today. No more rant juice today. Keeping it pretty short. You're saying you're late. Yeah, AJ, there was a section, I think it was in the first hour of the stream. I talked pretty extensively about Alan Wake 2, so you can probably go back and check that out. Devil Shooter said his timestamps are going to be a little bit late, so just a heads up to everybody. Did I get to the old gods of Asgard part? If you're talking about the chapter we sing, I did. That was insane. Like, dude, that was genuinely insane. I'm sorry. I don't know why there's stuttering happening either. I don't know, dude. I got maybe. You know what I think I'm gonna have to do? I'm gonna have to check my wire. I think I'm gonna have to like run. I have this long Ethernet cable running from my modem to my PC. I wonder if like my cat has been chewing it and I'm just not aware of it. Because you know what? I was playing the PS5 the other day and just out of nowhere it just said like LAN connection dropped or LAN cable disconnected. I'm like, what? And then it just like reconnected. So dude, I swear if it's Boss chewing on the wires, I'm gonna be so upset. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's what's causing it or not. Yeah, I don't know if it's just, I don't watch other people's streams, so I don't know if it's just my stream or if it's happening all around YouTube. I do just know that they are, you know, they are making some changes on the back end, so I don't know if that's what's causing it, but Media Molecule has been sharing a lot of nostalgic Little Big Planet 1 pics and stuff. I wonder if they're teasing Little Big Planet remake. That would be a pretty safe bet for them if they wanted to try to do something like that. And I could understand. I mean, I'm not saying we need more remakes. I think it was confirmed that Media Molecule is working on something new. I do, but I could understand, you know, why they would maybe consider possibly doing something like that. Saying it's just, oh, okay. Well, all right, guys, that is going to do it for today's stream. Before I head out, I want to once again give you guys a big thank you. A big shout out to everybody who gifted any channel memberships. A big shout out to anybody who dropped a super chat. If it wasn't for your support, I wouldn't be able to do what I do here, and I really do appreciate it very much, guys. So, yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. A big shout out to Devil Shooter. He's going to have the timestamps out a little bit late, but he's going to have them out nonetheless. So if you see him, give him a big thank you for that. And the last thing I'm going to ask you guys before you head out is just take a second, hit that like button. It really helps the streams. And that's it. I will catch up with you guys probably tomorrow. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet, but yeah, just be on the lookout, and that does it. So enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I will catch you all in the next one. So until next time, guys, take care.